Hi everyone, welcome back to the Intercooler podcast with Dan Prosser and Andrew Frankel. This is episode 258. It's a really busy one, Andrew. Lots that we want to talk about, not least us.
Oh yeah, that.
We are starting with...
I've forgotten about that.
This is important, right?
Yes, it is important. This is important. Pay attention.
Yeah, do pay attention. Thank you. So we're talking about upgrading the Intercooler, right? There are a whole raft of upgrades coming to the Intercooler app, website, podcasts, and so on. Really important stuff. And with it comes a price rise. So only our second ever price rise, the second in 4 years.
Yeah, and the first since for 2 years.
And the first for 2 years.
Yeah.
So the price of a standard sub will be going up to £8 a month and £78 a year as of the 22nd of April. And the reason for that is that we have this big suite of upgrades coming that we think really make a huge difference to the offer, right?
Absolutely.
The proposition, the TI proposition. So let me run through those.
Yeah, but also without in any way changing fundamentally. You know, we're not going to be suddenly writing about horses or anything else. You know, so the content and the content providers will be the same. It's more to do with the way we get it to you.
Yeah, and it's all over and above what we've been doing already, so that won't change. So as of the 22nd of April, subscribers to the Intercooler will be able to listen to this weekly podcast ad-free on whichever podcast app they prefer. That might be Spotify, that might be Apple Podcasts, or on the TI Apple website if you prefer. Yeah.
How's that going to work?
It's very clever.
Go on.
Right, so...
Amaze me.
Subscribers will need to go to their My Account page once logged in on the app or on the website, and they'll click the menu, and there's an option there that says they call it a hamburger menu, and there's an option there that says podcasts. And very simply, if you're on Spotify, you'll click Spotify and follow the prompts. If you want to use one of the others, it should be listed there.
So Apple will be there?
Apple's there. Actually, I think with Apple, it might be easier. Just underneath the row of icons, there is a link that you can copy. Copy that link, and then you go to Apple Podcasts, and there is an option to insert that link to follow a new show. Yeah. We will be sending out via email more specific instructions than this. Yes. But it's very easy to
subscribers.
To all subscribers, but it's very easy to do.
But the point being is you can listen to this exact self-same podcast, but without any of the annoying ad breaks.
Yes, indeed. And you won't be able to do that if you're not a subscriber. So you have to be a paying subscriber to get all this.
Yes.
So that's one upgrade. We're also going to start doing a midweek show that's going to go out on a Thursday. And again, it's going to be you and I. It's called Ask the Intercooler. So essentially, we're going to be fielding questions from the TI subscriber base.
Yeah, but only from subscribers and only available to subscribers.
Yeah, and again, you'll be able to listen to that on your favourite podcast app or the app and website.
Yeah.
It's ad-free, but you will need to be a paying subscriber.
Exactly. So the point is, this is not going out free to air.
No.
It'll be only going out to people who subscribe to us. So if there is a burning question you've ever felt like asking either of us about anything, as long as it's, I guess, vaguely car-related, you're going to need to be a subscriber.
You're going to be able to watch our YouTube videos ad-free on our app and website. And this, I think, is the big one. And it's quite an innovation, I think, particularly in our little world. Our daily articles are going to be available to subscribers in audio format.
So like little podcasts all in themselves?
Yeah. Via, again, your chosen podcast app or the TI app and website, also ad-free. So if you like the idea of a car magazine like ours with what we are absolutely determined is the world's best team of automotive writers, if you like the sound of that, but you don't have the time to read.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, people do say that they really want to subscribe, but they just don't have the time. We all know how busy lives are. But now you can have the articles read to you on your way to work when you're walking the dog in the same way that you would listen to any other podcast. So hopefully that means that a lot more people will be able to listen to a lot more articles.
Yeah. I'm really excited about this. I think people are going to like it.
Yes. So for now, it's going to apply to new articles, isn't it?
Yeah.
But over time, we hope to. I mean, there's an enormous back catalogue. Well over probably hundreds, certainly over 1,000 stories already there. We haven't got around to doing all of them yet.
No, so I think as we go, we're going to pick out some of the highlights.
Exactly.
And make those available as audio articles.
But from April the 22nd, every single news story we post will have the ability to be listened to as well.
Yeah, and as I said, you can listen via the app and website, or, and this is the great part, via whichever podcast app you prefer. So if you're used to using Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google or any of the others, you'll be able to listen to our magazine via that. And it'll just appear. Each morning it'll appear and you can listen.
And so far as we're aware, there is nobody else in this space doing anything like it.
No, not at all. Not at all. But you have to be a subscriber.
Yeah.
There's still time to lock in our current pricing, which is $59.99 for a year if you subscribe annually. So subscribe annually before the 22nd of April and you'll lock in our current pricing for a year. Also, if you're a monthly subscriber currently, you can switch. In your My Account page, you can switch to an annual before the 22nd of April to lock in our current pricing. So,
and how do people subscribe?
There will be a link in the description, in the show notes, or just go to the-intercooler.com, and it couldn't be simpler. It takes no time at all to actually subscribe, to start your free trial. It's really easy, and as of the 22nd of April, we've got all these upgrades that are going to be available to you, but only if you're a subscriber.
Yeah.
So if you've been umming and ahhing for a while, I mean, surely now...
We hope.
We hope. We really do. Okay, well listen, as we said, this is a very, very busy show. There's a lot that we want to talk about. I just want to mention the Japanese Grand Prix. We're not going to bang on about this.
Did you stay awake?
I did actually, but I rather wish I'd not set my alarm, frankly. I mean, Verstappen, bravo, at his very best all weekend.
But the car's got better too, hasn't it?
The car's certainly got better. That was not the dog of the car of a car that he's had for the first
I feel sorry
races.
for Liam Lawson because, you know, the car has got better, but he wasn't able to show that he would have been better in it.
Yeah.
And people also say, well, okay. In fact, actually, Lawson actually out-qualified Tsunoda.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite interesting.
I think that's fair enough, though. Tsunoda's first qualifying session, with very, very little testing in what is well, we know it's a difficult car. How many drivers have struggled alongside Max?
Well, all of them.
It's a difficult car. So I think we mustn't judge Tsunoda too harshly for that one. But, yeah, I wrote an article last week, which is available on the app and website, saying essentially that Red Bull is a team in crisis. And I absolutely maintain that.
They clearly heard.
They heard, and they thought, Christian Horner read it, he must be one of our subscribers, and thought,
right, pull your finger
let's
up, boys.
buck our ideas up.
Yeah.
But actually, I think it demonstrated the point that I was making quite well, because their crisis is that they've got a car that only one person can drive and win in. And the bloke in the second car finished outside the points and got out-qualified by both junior Red Bulls.
Yes, so, you know...
That's their problem.
And Red Bull... You know, it's great, driver championships are fine, but they belong to drivers.
Yeah.
They want constructors, and there's no way
they're not going to win it.
They're going to win the constructors unless they can, you know, get Tsunoda playing wingman to Max.
Yeah.
And at the moment, Max is absolutely on his own, which means that, okay, they weren't able to do it at Suzuka, but it means that other teams, at the moment McLaren, will be able to gang up on them, split strategies, and, you know, and hope that at least one of them, it very nearly worked actually, because Max had quite a slow pit stop.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll be able to try two different things. And if it only requires one of them to work, and that's it.
Yeah. So I think Red Bull are in trouble there, and they're in deep, deep doo-doo if Verstappen does decide that he's had enough of that team in the next couple of years. If he decides that he's off, they could be in real trouble.
Everything depends on the new powertrain, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it really does.
Well, so much does, certainly.
And their powertrain is going to... Well, okay, so it's Red Bull powertrain, so it is an established organisation, but it's Ford coming in as the sort of title partner on the powertrain side.
Yeah, and it's more than just a sponsorship arrangement. They are, I don't know the level of technicality, but they are definitely getting some dirt under their fingernails too. Good.
So... It's going to be fascinating to see the Red Bull thing evolve this year and work out just how much of a crisis that team really is in. But anyway, I just wanted to briefly mention an issue that there has been in and around Formula One for some time now. The race yesterday speaks to a big issue. The McLarens were faster cars in the race. Mm-hmm. Whenever you have one car tucked up right behind another in that sort of 1 to 2 second window for entire stints for an entire race, that second car is faster. It just can't get by.
Can't get by. And And it has to sit there in the dirty air watching its tyres go away.
Yeah. And this is the issue with F1. Even with DRS, Lando Norris could barely get inside the DRS range, that 1 second window. And so he couldn't get past Max. He just had to sit there for the entire race and couldn't do anything about it. And this is on a permanent racetrack.
Yes, but it is a very fast and flowing permanent racetrack. So it's where, you know, speeds are very high. And so that effect is going to be felt a lot. But yes, you're absolutely right.
It's a great track, wonderful history. But how many times do we have to go to a circuit and hear the commentators say, well, we know track position is important here. You know it's difficult to overtake. Pole position is everything.
Yeah.
And it just means that it's a pole position shootout.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because they're mandating 2 stops at Monaco now for exactly this reason.
Yeah.
So maybe they should do it at some more places too. Do it at Hungary.
I think they should. You know, I am an F1 purist. I think the regulations should meddle as little as possible. But when the racing is like it was yesterday, I think probably meddle a bit more. Bring in things like mandated 2 pit stop strategies.
Yeah.
Just because it's just tedious. It is tedious. Also, these current regulations, I'm glad we're in the final year of them. We don't really know what the next set of regs due next year are going to be like.
No, but history tells us, doesn't it, that someone will get it more right than anybody else.
Yeah, but I just haven't particularly enjoyed watching these cars. You know, they look big, they look heavy. They
are big, they are heavy.
They look clumsy.
They don't sound very good.
They don't sound good.
No.
They haven't improved the racing much.
I think a little bit, but not much. But next year's cars, well, okay, they're a little bit smaller. They're a tiny bit, it's like 20 kilos lighter or something.
Not much.
It's nothing. It'll be the same show.
Yeah. So bring on these new cars, and I just hope that they're able to follow. I hope that they are better able to overtake one another, because it is absurd watching a slower car stuck behind a faster one. Sorry, a faster car stuck behind a slower one, not being able to do anything about it.
And talking about being an F1 purist.
Yeah.
There was a time in Formula One where, you could have a choice of engines.
Yeah.
And there's all this talk about V10s V10 naturally aspirated V10s powered by sustainable fuels, and I think that Audi are against it, and they're coming in. And I think if 2 manufacturers say no, then despite the fact that all the others say yes, it doesn't happen. And I think there are at the moment 2 saying no. I think Mercedes is sort of saying, we need to see the detail, whatever. I say just have both.
Yeah.
Have V10s and have these V6s, they can choose between them. And if that means, and this is the heresy, you have to, here comes the dreaded phrase, balance the performance somehow.
Yeah, I know.
To make sure of an even play. I'd do it.
Yeah.
I would do it.
Yeah. I think I would, and it's frustrating that...
Have both.
That a manufacturer like Audi would come in and try to block it. All the fans want it.
Of course.
The fans want it.
But what are the fans? What do they matter?
Oh, who cares?
We're a big engine manufacturer. We want to do this, so,
It doesn't suit it doesn't suit Audi's objectives. No. I get that. I get that it doesn't. But who cares? Honestly, I'd take V10s over Audi.
Who wouldn't?
I really, really would.
Of course, so would I.
They have too much power,
and it's happened before. If you look at,
the car makers have too much power.
In the mid 1970s, Renault came along with this strange turbocharged engine, and everybody else was running, V8 and V12. Or in Ferrari's case, flat 12 3-litre engines, and they ran side by side. And after a bit, the turbochargers got an upper hand, and that was the end of naturally aspirated. But even then, they had effectively 2 classes within Formula One. You remember Jonathan Palmer won the Jim Clark Trophy?
Yeah.
For naturally aspirated cars. So there are ways of doing these things, but I just balance the performance. Anyway, we've got a lot to get through today.
We have Donald Trump, tariffs. Oh my goodness me. So, it was last week.
I don't know why I'm laughing.
I know. It was last week that Trump announced that the US was imposing a 25% tariff on all imported cars, which is a big problem, particularly for UK car makers like JLR, like Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Aston Martin, McLaren. Big problem, because the US is such an export market for them.
Yeah, for these high quality, great machines. It is. But I think it's going to be a much bigger problem for some than for others. I think what Trump is trying to achieve is people go and buy the American alternative because that's the patriotic thing to do.
Yeah.
Could you remind me what the American alternative is to a McLaren 750S?
I'd like to try one.
Yeah.
There's one.
No, or an Aston Martin Vanquish. Or a Rolls-Royce Phantom. They don't exist. There aren't any. And I think that right at the top end, certainly at the Rolls-Royce end, I don't think that if you are an American person in a position to buy a used Rolls-Royce, you're not going to let Trump effectively say you can't have that car. No. You'll just grit your teeth and write the check. At the other end, and I use the term relatively because obviously we're still, very much in the luxury market. But if you're JLR, trying to sell Defenders and Range Rover Sports and that sort of thing, I think it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And we know, don't we, that they've already announced that they're going to stop exports to the US. I think it's only for a month while they consider their position. I suspect what's behind that is that they don't want to be flooding the market with stock they can't sell.
And they're not pulling out of the market. It's not a protest.
And they can't. No. But they just need to work out what to do.
Yeah.
And I understand it because the last thing you want is, thousands of Land Rovers, piling up on the docks without her. Because as we know, if you do that, you oversupply the market. It hits the residuals, and that's a very long path back from that.
Yeah.
But it's so short-sighted because more than anything else, there will be a short-term boost. I'm sure there will, and he'll be able to go around going, "Told you so." But in the long term, all he's going to ensure is that American car manufacturers become more and more uncompetitive. And tariffs will be slapped on exports of those from all around the world, and also people will refocus their businesses. People will wean themselves off the American market and they'll go and do business in other places. And it's going to be really hard and it's going to be really tough, particularly to, British luxury car manufacturers because America is their biggest export market. In fact, it will be their biggest market, full stop. But they'll find a way. They have to.
I suppose the issue, just think about it now, 25% is a heck of a lot. Perhaps if it was 10%, I know there is a 10% sort of baseline tariff on imported goods.
But it's not on top of that, it's instead of that.
But if the tariff was just 10%, car makers in the UK and Europe and buyers over in the US would probably just wear it, wouldn't they?
Yes, and if it was the same, if that didn't exist and so UK car exports were exported at the 10% tariff that's been slapped on us as opposed to the 20% tariff that has been slapped on the EU, that would actually, bizarrely, give us a competitive advantage. Because, British-built cars would be essentially cheaper than ones built in the EU.
Nevertheless, it's more than that. And I think people are saying, I've seen some commentators say that Trump is going to have to roll back on these at some point. He's going to be forced to.
Well, I mean, he said they're permanent. And thank goodness, there's one occasion where you can actually be glad that you can't believe a word that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, that's right.
And he was crowing over the weekend about all these leaders who have been. The thing with Trump, I could so easily go off on one here. I promise you I'm not going to because that's not what this podcast is for. But all I would say is, for him, it's not good enough that he wins. You have to lose
that's right.
too.
Yeah,
that is the thing.
He says that in The Art of the Deal, his book, doesn't he?
Does he?
He does say essentially that.
I'm proud to say I've never even opened a page.
Well, nor have I. But I think he does say exactly that.
He says you have to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also called being a bully, isn't it?
It is. But it's short-sighted. It's just bad for global trade, isn't it?
The master of the art of the deal has managed to arrange a deal which means that not a single party to that deal will end up winning. A deal where everybody loses. Way to go, Donald.
So Labour, the UK government, say they're hoping to strike a trade deal with the US still.
Yeah.
Who knows? But let's assume that doesn't happen. What do the likes of JLR, Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Aston, McLaren, what do they do? They just have to whack prices up?
They will have. There's no way they can weigh. You know what? It's not like this is sort of Gucci handbags where you have margins measurable in the thousands of percent.
25% might be in the entire margin.
More than.
Much more than.
More than. I'd be. Yeah.
On a Rolls Royce, I think there's probably
on a Rolls Royce, yeah, probably. But yes, but on a Defender,
no. Yeah.
I mean, I have absolutely no idea, but I imagine it would make, without putting the price up, it would make them uneconomic to export to the US. So they're going to have to pass it on. And the calculation will be, how much of it do you pass on?
Yeah.
And, if you see what's happening to stock markets at the moment around the world, how willing in this era of total financial uncertainty, and it's not just what the markets are doing at the moment, it's how people feel in themselves about how their futures are going to be. Are they even going to be interested in buying these cars? Are people just going to go, that Range Rover, I promised myself because my existing one's already 3 years old, maybe I'll just keep the one I've got for another couple of years and see whether this blows over. If the global economic recession, which some predict is genuinely on its way, I think these cars are going to be really difficult to sell at any price.
Yeah.
And it's all down to one man. It's astonishing. It's not like, COVID's come back or anything else. It's just... I'm laughing again because it's better than the alternative.
It's a laugh or cry.
Yeah.
It does make you think about those nearly new Range Rovers and all the rest of them in the US. If there aren't new cars coming in, or there are very few new cars being bought and sold,
their residuals are going to be cracking, aren't they? Yeah.
It's like a few years ago here in the UK, the used car market just went bananas when no one could get brand new cars. Same thing's going to happen, isn't it? There's a classic car exemption, isn't there?
Yes, there is a classic car exemption. So I think, is it 25 years? If you're selling, so let's say, you restore vintage Bentleys or whatever, you can sell those into the US. What we don't know is whether that is still going to apply to parts. So whole cars, yes. The parts that are within those cars, or the parts that you send across to service and maintain and restore those cars, that hasn't been announced yet.
Blimey.
Yes.
It's just, the car industry, particularly the UK car industry, such turmoil at the moment. It's in a terrible position, really. And none of us would, frankly, choose to be at the helm of one of these car makers right now, as the entire industry is going through this shift to electrification. It
is so tough for exactly that reason. All the money that has been made chasing I was about to say EV dream, but going down that road, and now out of nowhere, for really genuinely no good reason whatsoever, they have to try somehow to deal with this. It's sad more than else. It's just sad.
It's existential, isn't it? And so in the wake of all this, just today actually, Labour announced that the ZEV mandate was being relaxed.
Ish.
Yeah, not a lot. It's not being taken away. So this is the mandate that bans the sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2030 and hybrids and PHEVs, actually, plug-in hybrid EVs, from 2035.
Yes.
So for another 5 years, you'll be able to buy a brand new petrol or diesel car. For another 10 years, you'll be able to buy a hybrid. But after that, they're gone.
So hang on. So but 2030 is still in place, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And 2035 is still in place.
It's still in place.
Yeah.
So those dates have not moved. But it's all about the phasing out of petrol and diesel cars has been relaxed. So,
and also the exemption for low volume manufacturers.
So that's right. So for small volume manufacturers, they are exempt. So they can continue producing pure petrol and diesel cars from 2030. But it's unclear until when? 2035?
I haven't
heard.
And also,
they haven't said.
And also, I haven't heard, and maybe it's in the detail, and by the time you guys are listening to this, maybe it will become clear. I don't even know what it means by small volume. But I think we can certainly say that it will be well inside the volumes of a McLaren, an Aston Martin, a Rolls-Royce, and probably a Bentley too.
So you'll be able to buy ICE, Aston Martin, Bentley, McLaren for another decade yet, at least.
Yes.
According to this, it might be longer. The fines for each non-compliant vehicle sold between now and 2030, they're down from £15,000 per car to £12,000.
I know. It's still a lot of money.
It's still a lot.
It's still a powerful deterrent.
Yeah. So the relaxation here of the ZEV mandate is that there was this very, very rigorous and clearly determined trajectory from, I think it's 28% of new cars sold in the UK now to 100% in 2030. And if you weren't meeting that, you were getting fined heavily. And so that's what's been relaxed. So manufacturers can essentially backload their EV.
Exactly. So they can sell fewer EVs now, not get fined, so long as they sell proportionally more, that proportion more later.
And hope in 3 or 4 years the market has adjusted a lot.
Yes.
And demand for those cars has gone up.
And of course they're all going to do that because who knows what government we will have. I mean, one thing is guaranteed is there will be a general election between now and 2030, and who knows what the outcome of that will be.
Yeah.
So I mean, my view is it's good, but it's not nearly good enough.
And actually, it doesn't. Everyone is still net worse off after Trump's 25% tariffs.
Yeah,
even after this ZEV mandate relaxation, everyone's still net worse off.
I think it's almost. It sounds to me that this Trump thing has come along as a bit. You know, they were always going to have to do this with the ZEV mandate, with or without tariffs. And what has happened is that Trump has come along and provided a convenient hook for them to hang this on.
Yeah,
it's not really. You know, they say it's a reaction to Trump, but it's really hard to see how it is and why it would be. What it is a reaction to is something that we have banged on relentlessly about, is that we're simply not ready. And the manufacturers aren't in a position to do what has up until now been required of them. So it's not enough, but it is something. And I guess on the something's better than nothing front, it should be welcomed-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, nevertheless, there will be some people in boardrooms in car makers up and down the country just breathing something of a sigh of relief this morning, I'm sure.
Because nothing like the groans they're going to be facing with just the prospect of trying to sell cars. You know, it's their biggest market.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, this is not the luxury goods. As I say, it's not, you know, Louis Vuitton, this, that, and the other. Margins are really tight. 25% is punitive. Yeah, well, we'll wait to see what happens. Can we talk about something else now? It just gets me really depressed.
Okay, well, McLaren then. We will just mention briefly that last week we published our triple test of every LT long-tail McLaren yet produced.
Yes.
So 675 LT, the original, 2015, so it's now 10 years of these cars. 600 LT and 765 LT.
Yes. And what a fine day we had with those three.
It was great, wasn't it? It's so cool to get those three cars together and sort of plot the evolution of LT. We wanted to do it because there's only been 3 of these cars. So 3 models, each with a coupe and Spider variant. So 6 cars, but really it's 3 cars. But even in just those 10 short years, LT has become one of those sort of performance subdivisions, sub-brands that we really sort of cherish, don't we? And when we hear news of a new one, we all get excited.
Well, because we know that it will be, you know, be really, really focused on lightweighting. In a way, actually, I mean, it is to McLaren what GT3 is to Porsche, or you know, Pista or Speciale or Scuderia is to Ferrari. But with McLaren, it's really, the focus is really on maximising the driving position. You know, so the 675 LT had 100 kilos taken out of an already extremely light car.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. The 600, I think, was 95 kilos. And I can remember talking to someone very senior at McLaren about the 765 LT, and they were saying the 720S, which is ultimately what it was derived from, is such a light car. You simply can't do it. And I think they still managed to get 80 out of that. And if you saw the list of things that they went to, I mean, I think in a 675 LT, runners for the passenger seat are optional extras. Stuff like that. Yeah. You know,
David Tuig, our friend and contributor, and this is the bloke who oversaw the development of the Alpine A110. He told me once that he lost at least one night's sleep just pondering whether or not it was the right thing to do to fix the passenger seat in position, so have no runners, to save 500 grams.
But if you're serious about making light cars, it's what you do.
Yeah.
Or you just make it an option.
You have to obsess over this stuff.
Give them the choice.
Yeah.
And everybody will auction them in. But at the meantime, you get to declare a lower curb weight and make people realise just how hard you've tried in it, that you've taken the passenger seat runners away. Do it.
Yeah. But you're right. For McLarens and LT McLarens in particular, the driving experience is the single most important thing, more so than probably any other comparable marque. And we wanted to do this because 10 years ago, you and I both drove the 675 LT and both just went, oh my goodness, this thing is sensational. And it immediately became, certainly for me, in my probably top 3 favourite cars.
And there are lots of people who will say that to this day it's the best McLaren they've done.
Yeah. There are plenty of them.
I'm not sure I'm not one of them.
I'm not sure I'm not one of them. Yeah, okay.
As in, I might be one of them.
I think so too. So your story is live on the Apple website now, and my video will be up quite soon. But honestly, we just had a mega day comparing those 3 cars. And what I will say is the 675 LT, the original, sometimes you revisit a car after 10 years and you just go, oh, okay, so the game really has moved on a long way, or it's not quite as good as I remembered, or whatever. This thing...
Apart from the interior, which is dated now.
It's the only thing.
It's the only thing. The rest of it, the way it actually gets you from one place to another.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's so good.
Wow.
The steering, the ride, the handling, everything.
And the 765, which is, I mean, they actually all weigh about the same, which is amazing. But the 765 with a bigger engine, another 90 horsepower, and when I looked it up, an enormous amount more torque. That is almost hypercar level performance. I mean, that is so...
It is.
It is so unimaginably fast. The 675, you can just, you can use a lot of the performance a lot of the time. The 765, it's like a sort of runaway freight train, isn't it? It is just...
Yeah.
I mean, scintillatingly rapid.
It's unbelievable. So a couple of years ago, we had P1 and 765 LT on that same road.
We did.
And yeah, the supercar, the 765, didn't feel materially slower than the P1.
Because it's not. Did we not work out that its power to weight ratio is actually better than the P1's?
We may well have done.
Yeah.
It is frighteningly fast, that car.
It is certainly as fast now as a hypercar was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then the 600 LT. So you can buy one of those for £130,000, something like that. So it is, by a good distance, the most affordable LT. And it's still really good to drive. And it sounds fantastic. It's got those exhausts coming out the top deck.
Coming out the top, yeah.
So you really hear it.
But you can buy a 675 LT for 180, 190.
Do you know, that's the most surprising thing.
Which is almost like $100,000 less than you paid for a 765 LT. And it's the rarest, it's the best looking, it's the rarest.
If I had a stack of money, which sadly I don't, I'd rent a warehouse and buy every single 675 LT I could and just store them in there, because those things are going to be excellent news.
They are.
I can't believe they are. I was going to use the word cheap. They're not cheap, but you know what I mean.
Value.
We know how many there are. There's only 1,000 of them.
500 of each.
Yeah. So it's rarer than an F40. They are brilliant to drive. They look great. It's a significant car because it's the first LT. They're going to be good news, those things.
They are. They are.
So let's stay on the topic McLaren.
Big news from McLaren.
Really big news. And I hopefully you sort of have more of a feel for the implications of all this, what it all means. But McLaren
I don't think we know.
Not really, but we can sort of mull it over, can't we? McLaren is merging with a UK and very well-funded British EV startup called 47.
Yes, whose name will shortly disappear.
The name will disappear. EV startup is a bit of a red herring. So what on earth is 47? You have probably never heard of it. I hadn't until recently. But it is a British startup that's been quietly assembling a team of 700 or so very, very capable engineers, designers, industry professionals. The CEO is Nick Collins, who was former engineering chief at JLR. So it's a serious organisation with real funding.
Some people will now be saying, well, it's not British at all because it is funded by the Abu Dhabi government.
Yeah.
But it's the same Abu Dhabi, excuse me, it's the same holding company that owns McLaren as well. So you can say these things aren't British, but you'd have to say at the same time that Bentley wasn't British and that Rolls-Royce wasn't British because they're owned by German companies. So that's the distinction. But yes, so the money that has gone into it has come from Abu Dhabi, but the people who are there, it is registered in the UK, its offices are in the UK, the people who work there are predominantly British. And it is,
and a lot of them have come from the likes of Aston Martin,
exactly,
and Rolls-Royce, and so on.
Of course, probably McLaren too, I think.
Yeah,
because the idea when it was started up, it was never sort of done as a sort of a means to acquire McLaren. No. It was going to go and do its own cars, and it was going to become a brand new brand. But then McLaren got sold quite recently, with a non-controlling interest in the Formula One team as well, to the Abu Dhabi government or to the holding company that it's created. And then that suddenly made this thing possible. So what are the ramifications? The ramifications are potentially absolutely enormous, because it gives McLaren the ability to go into areas of the market that there is nowhere in the world that could ever have gone anywhere near in the past.
Yeah.
So this is going to result in more different kinds of McLarens. I don't think they'll stop doing what they're doing, but this is how, for instance, the much mooted McLaren SUV is going to appear. What else are they going to do? You will have to wait and see. But I think if you look at the sort of the Ferrari playbook and the kind of cars they produce, a sort of front-engine 2+2 coupe is probably quite a sensible, like a Roma or whatever. It's probably quite a sensible bet. There are all sorts of things. It'll make McLaren a much less niche, more mainstream, but still, high performance luxury brand.
So one of the criticism, or one of the observations about McLaren Automotive so far, is that all the cars are carbon fibre, mid-engined, supercar type things. There are different sort of forms and shapes and variants, but fundamentally they're all the same. This will change that.
Yes.
So 47 is really just a placeholder name. It was never going to be used publicly, and that will now be forgotten. And those cars that 47 has been developing, will now, we think, wear McLaren badges.
We think so.
And it's unusual. They said it calls itself an EV startup. I think its website is 47-EV.com.
So the word EV is in the title of the website, but it is a red herring.
It is a red herring. So not all future McLarens are going to be EV. That's not what's happening here. No, there will still be ICE cars in there.
Yes, there will. And I suspect that website and that name came up before McLaren was even on the table. So I suspect if 47 had gone off and done their own thing, then they probably would have been EVs. But I suspect also there's a spot of realpolitik going on here at the moment, because they know as well as everybody else that high performance EV super stroke hypercars are not exactly flavour of the month at the moment.
Ooh, yes, we'll come on to that.
Yes.
But I mean, hopefully this is basically fantastic news for McLaren. Hopefully it secures its future with new capital, with new markets that it can go into, with new resources. Because we've wondered for a long time about McLaren, haven't we? What exactly is the future of McLaren Automotive? It's struggled along at times. It hasn't been able to break out of that supercar space. So fingers crossed, this is a real moment for McLaren Automotive.
They've also bought, which bit of Gordon Murray is it? Gordon Murray Technologies.
Yeah.
Which is, so it's not Gordon Murray Automotive.
No.
So it's not the T50 and the T33, but it is the iStream production process.
Yep.
Which is this incredibly innovative production process that Gordon Murray had pioneered for quite a long time ago now, and we haven't got nearly enough time to go into it here, but basically it results in cars that, in theory at least, are simpler, lighter and easier to make. But they're going to have to, some things will have to change, because I think at the moment the new company has got headquarters or offices in Bicester. Obviously Gordon Murray is down in Shalford, McLaren's in Woking. They're going to have to come together somewhere, and I don't think that anybody really knows where all these cars are going to get built. I can't imagine that they're all going to get built at Woking. So I think there's an awful lot that we have yet to find out. But if as it seems, there is if this puts McLaren on a firm financial footing, then I guess it is something that has to be welcomed. I still wonder about a company like McLaren not having. It's not just about the money. If you're Bentley, the technical resources, if you're Rolls-Royce, that Volkswagen and BMW are able to provide, the clout they are able to give you with their suppliers, because no one is going to say no to Volkswagen. These are massive advantages which go far and beyond the amount of money you have in the bank. The economies of scale, the production processes, getting the tier 2 suppliers right, so that if one tier 2 supplier falls over, that doesn't stop production, because there's always someone. All these sorts of things, which if you are set up like a Volkswagen or a BMW, just happen, and you as a small bespoke boutique British car manufacturer can take maximum advantage of. McLaren still won't be able to do that in anything like the same way that their key British rivals will. So we will see. But it's nevertheless, it is. I think net it still has to be good news.
Yeah, let's hope so. So I want to talk about Corvettes.
Don't let me stop you.
Because
I'm very happy to talk about Corvettes. I haven't done it for a while.
Because just today, a new Corvette concept has been revealed. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see images of that Corvette concept right now. And the interesting thing about this Corvette concept is that it's been designed in Leamington Spa. Yes.
Which is not necessarily the first place you'd imagine a Corvette being designed, but
no.
You might also think more sort of Detroit-y. But
yes, but there's good reason for it. GM, General Motors, has a advanced design studio in Leamington Spa, and it was set up by our friend and contributor Julian Thompson. So, designer of the Series 1 Elise, he created the concept, the LRX, the Land Rover LRX.
The Land Rover Evoque, everything that other people have taken credit from.
Yeah.
That was Julian's work.
It's Julian's work.
Frankly, the design language that Range Rover used to this day, if you go and look at a brand new Range Rover and you look at the LRX concept, you're not going to struggle to see the connection.
No, not at all. So Julian is a superstar designer. We're delighted that he's in our ranks actually as a writer. And he now oversees this advanced design studio in Warwickshire. And the first project, it was opened last year, I think, this studio, and their first ever project was to reimagine the Corvette as a hypercar. And it's a design study. This isn't about designing the next Corvette. It's about pushing the boundaries and imagining what the Corvette could eventually evolve into in 10, 20 years' time. And last week, or the week before that, I went up to the studio to meet Julian, and also Joanna Fidalgo works there.
Yes.
She's business operations manager, I think. So she
runs the place.
She runs the place. She reports directly into Julian, and she makes stuff happen there. Hello, Joe. Again, one of our writers. And so I went there, met with both of them, met with Mike Simcoe, who is GM's most senior designer. He's retiring in 3 months. And so he oversees all of General Motors' design activity at the moment. And it's such an enormous operation. In Warren, which is near Detroit in Michigan, they have this massive design studio where 1,500 designers work. And then they've got, I think it's 4 of these smaller satellite studios dotted around the world. And the reason they keep these studios around the world is because if you have just one central design studio full of people who are sort of immersed in what GM means, what Corvette means, what GMC means, and all the rest of it, it becomes an echo chamber, and everyone becomes blinkered, and you just start doing the same thing over and over and over. So companies like GM keep these studios around the world to get a totally different perspective, to challenge the mothership, to inspire and provoke. It's a really sort of broad-minded and sophisticated way of going about car design.
Yeah, and if you if you sent out the brief being, design the next Corvette, you're going to come back with a car which could be the next Corvette. What you want to do is say, design the next Corvette of your dreams.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be production feasible. It just go far and far beyond, because then if you have that and then you have to peg that back to something which can actually be made, then at least you end up a lot further into the future with something a lot more radical and interesting than something which, you just think, oh, well, there's this constraint, that constraint, we better just work within those parameters.
And so the brief was to reimagine the hypercar. the Corvette as a hypercar for the future. And locally, within Leamington Spa, they chose to make it an EV hypercar. So there's no small block V8 in their car.
Boo.
Boo. And remember, all these things are purely theoretical. You know, the car doesn't drive.
I'm not being entirely serious.
No. But it looks sensational. It really does look amazing. It's beautiful. Early Corvettes, the first sort of 2 or maybe 3 generations of Corvette, they were beautiful cars. I
was never knocked out by the original, actually. But from the C2 onwards, yeah. Beautiful.
But the modern one, with respect to all those who worked hard on it, I'm afraid I've just never got on with the look of the 8th generation.
I'm afraid it's a mess.
It is.
I mean, I can remember the first time I saw one, which was in America, just parked at the side of the street. It was a rental. And just looking at this sort of craze mishmash of lines going in. And the side is it's a fabulous thing to drive.
Yeah.
They are so good.
Yeah. Pity, the first mid-engine one.
Yeah. They got all that bit right, and then they just...
Yeah.
And, Corvette is such a design icon. You can't afford to get it wrong.
No. And so Julian and his team have reimagined it, and it's very beautiful, the car that they've come up with, particularly the upper section. If you're looking at the images, you'll know what I mean by that. It looks great. And so this is all part of GM's ongoing design process for the next Corvette. We don't even know when it's due, several years out still. Later this year, 2 of the other studios are going to produce their own concept, their own Corvette hypercar concept. So there are 3 distinct, very separate design studies coming this year. Today we've seen the first one. And what's interesting is that these studios aren't pitching to create the winning design, as it were. It's not like one of these is going to be chosen and that becomes the next Corvette. It's all just supposed to inspire the designers in Warren who will be coming up with the next Corvette later down the line.
And these studios actually, they also don't work in isolation, do they?
No.
Which you would expect. You'd expect that, the one thing that they would want to be most sure of is that whatever they're up to, none of the other studios gets to find out. But they actually work together, don't they?
They do, and Julian says that he's worked in advanced design studios before. And the point about these advanced design studios is they're imagining things years down the line. They're not working on a car that's going to arrive in 3 or 4 years. So it's often quite sort of pie in the sky, really. They might be concepts that do get seen. Often it's design studies that aren't shown publicly. And so Julian was saying he's worked in these before, and they are very guarded. They are, they do hide their work jealously in these places, and there's even a little bit of paranoia, because there is a sort of pressure to produce designs that are given the green light or approved at the sort of board level. He says that it's totally different within GM, that it's very, very collaborative. Everyone shares their work, which is interesting. I believe him, actually. And so it's fascinating to go and have a look at this car that they've come up with and see the studio where Julian and Joe work. It's an amazing place with very, very sophisticated equipment and technology in there, and a small, nimble, agile team of, I think it's 30 or so designers working there. And you just get this sense that when you walk in there, that it's a super, super talented bunch of people working there, and they must have a great time working with one another. Because that's what talented people like most, isn't it? Is working with other really talented people. So if you want to go and check out my article, my story about this Corvette concept, the piece is up there now on the Apple website, and you'll see. So they have imagined it as a EV hypercar. Not because they necessarily think that it should be, but because it gives them design freedoms. But also they are thinking years into the future where maybe an EV hypercar is going to be the way forward. But it's not right now. No. I mean, yeah, I can see the time. The time will probably come. Yeah. But as things stand, people don't seem to be clamouring for electric hypercars.
I know where you're going with this.
And you have an example of that up your sleeve, don't you?
Yes. So there was a Rimac Nevera, which came to market on Bring a Trailer, which is the sort of the big US online car auction house. I've completely forgotten the figures, but I think bidding stopped below $1.5 million on a car that was a year old and had done 1,000 miles. And that means, I believe, that whoever owned that car, if it had sold at whatever the top bid was, would have lost $1.3 million.
In 1,000 miles?
In 1,000 miles.
So is that $1,300 per mile? I think it is.
I think it probably is. I mean, the problem is, and we're not doing anybody any favours by talking about on this, is stories like that will just put off people for life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's such a long way back from that. Because people will just think, even the thing about really, 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 really rich people, unless they inherited it, but people who are, who are very canny with money, they didn't get that way by being happy or being casual about money and being happy to lose, millions here, millions there. They hate it. Yeah. They hate it more than people who haven't got that kind of money. And that's how they got that kind of money. And they're not going to want, there's no car that they're going to want, knowing that they're going to lose a 7-figure sum on it, effectively just driving it around the block a few times over the course of a year. So I think those cars are finished for now. They'll come back because there will come a time, unless there is, unless the whole renewable synthetic fuel thing comes along. But for now, I cannot see any future for those cars at all. And I think the other worry is that I think that there will be a ripple down effect, and I think that and I think we're already seeing it, and I think that people will be more nervous around much more affordable EV sports cars that are coming up.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Some people have said, quite rightly, that Bring a Trailer probably isn't the right place to sell a multi-million-pound EV hypercar.
I'm sure it isn't.
But it does damage nonetheless, doesn't it?
And it is a massive marketplace. So maybe they could have got more, or maybe they are getting more if they through a private sale. I guess you get to a point where these things become, I was about to use that bargain word again, where these cars do suddenly make sense because they become so cheap. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've never driven an EV hypercar. I've never driven a Navia. I've never driven a Rimac. I've never driven a Pininfarina Battista. So I'm not in a position to say, well, I completely understand why these things have fallen out of the sky because they're terrible to drive or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, the idea, the concept of them just doesn't appeal to me on any level at all. It's everything I don't want a car to be, which is massively heavy, no audible interest in it at all, huge car, limited in what you can do with it, and also because the amount of miles you have to do in any EV before it becomes a more environmentally friendly proposition than a petrol car. They're actually environmentally nothing like they're even worse than petrol cars because people are never going to do those sorts of mileages in them. So to me, they fail on every.
So they don't even have that to their credit, do they?
No.
I haven't driven any of the latest batch.
You drove a Navara, didn't you?
No, not a Navara. I was the first journalist in the world to drive a Rimac, though.
Oh,
it was a Concept 1, the original car.
Yeah, and that was still 1,100 horsepower or something, wasn't it?
Or more. Much more than that, I think.
Okay.
Maybe it was about 1,100. Frankly, not a finished car. I think they only built 8 of them. They were essentially prototypes. It was a learning process, really, for Navara.
And Martin Rimac has come out and said, our next cars aren't going to be EVs.
Yeah. And he's at the helm of Bugatti now.
Yeah.
I think he, as much as anyone can see, that the demand just isn't there right now.
Bugatti have just done a naturally aspirated V16.
Way to go, boys! Good lads.
Yeah.
So that's what customers up in that marketplace want. Up at that level,
of course.
They want special cars with great engines. They don't want EV hypercars. We've seen it time and time and time again. And this Rimac on Bring a Trailer shows that even in the sort of used space, there's not a lot of interest.
I shall make my watch analogy again. I was about to say there is no such thing as a collectible electric watch. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there are some swatches.
Oh, some people, yeah.
But generally speaking, people don't want to spend huge amounts of money on electric watches. And if they do, they would expect to lose almost all that money on their electric watch. Yeah, people like machinery.
They do.
Who knew?
They do. We do too. All right, well, we should wrap that one up. But remember, big upgrades coming to the Intercooler. Ad-free podcasts, an additional podcast midweek with us where you can ask your questions, watch our videos without ads, and also listen to our daily articles as podcasts, as ad-free podcasts. All of that via whichever podcast app you prefer. It's clever, I think.
Yeah.
It's innovative, isn't it?
Yep.
It's
but also, the price is going up.
Yeah.
April the 22nd.
Yeah.
So if you like the sound of that, just go and bag yourself an annual now at the lower price.
Yep.
And you'll get all that stuff.
Yeah, you have to be a subscriber to get all that stuff.
You have to be a subscriber. If you want to ask us questions,
yeah, you
have to be a subscriber.
I'll put a link in the show notes, or just head to the-intercooler.com and you'll find it. Thank you for doing that. To everyone who has subscribed, thank you.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
If you're thinking about being a subscriber, it's now very early April, and we do sort of internal quarterly updates, and we know that in the first quarter of this year, we sold 76% more subscriptions than we did in the first quarter of last year. And we hope that if you go and have a look, you'll see why. You'll see why things are going the way that they are.
Yeah, yeah. Well said.
I want to be part of it too.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that. And then please also just follow the show or subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching. Follow on whichever podcast app you're using. Follow the show. It means you don't miss an episode, but it also really helps us find a new audience. So do that. And in return, we'll be back again next week.
Bye.